Hi guys, here we are at the Ampersand building here in Calgary. This is one of the most beautiful office buildings you'll see. It's got 57,000 square feet of amenities and just absolutely beautiful space. They've reimagined what an office building should look like. I'm going to speak today to Morley Barr, the Senior Vice President of Real Estate Management for Aspen Properties. Come with me, it's going to be a good time.
That's really good.
I just wanna feel like this, living life, no regrets. Hands up in the air like ooh, nothing's gonna break my ooh. Yeah, I just wanna feel like this, feel like this.
Hi everybody, I'm Jared Sarbit. This is Mastering Property Management, and today I have the honor and privilege of having Morley Barr with me, the Senior Vice President of Aspen Properties Real Estate Management. This is our first on-site interview. As you can see, we're here in the Ampersand building. Super excited. We're going to be giving you a tour as well. Morley, thanks so much for coming.
Of course.
Great. Morley, let's get into it. First of all, tell me a little bit about Aspen Properties. Who are they? What are their values? Yeah, go into it.
A plug for your podcast. You had Scott Hutchison, one of the owners of Aspen, on. So if people haven't seen that episode, check it out. But
Aspen is an owner, developer, and manager of commercial real estate in Alberta.
They've got assets in Calgary and Edmonton. We're about 25 years old, a little bit older than that now. We have been playing just in the office space, but we're just dipping our toe in the res space as well. So
awesome.
Times are changing a little bit.
Amazing. We'll get into that too.
Yeah,
that's great. And tell me a little about yourself, Morley. You got into property management, I believe, in 1995. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Tell me your story. Go back as far back as you'd like. Some big milestones along the way that really got you into the position that you are today.
Sure. Yeah, 1995, January 9th. I remember the day. Heritage Mall in Edmonton. So it's a long time ago. It doesn't feel like that long ago, but when I talk to people I work with, they're like, oh, I was in grade 2 in 1995. I had a friend working for Cambridge Shopping Centers at the time. And I said, that sounds kind of cool. And, got the contact and tried to get a job there in 94 actually, and didn't get it. And then 95, I got the job in Edmonton.
Amazing.
So traveled around a bit with Cambridge. They had a program where they would, the promotions meant a new city.
Uh-huh.
So I traveled to places like Windsor and Newmarket in Ontario and Lethbridge and Nanaimo out in BC. So really a lot of travel. And ended up back in Edmonton and started working with Oxford. And, after Oxford, I was at Springwood, a company out of Edmonton, Colliers for a bit, and now Aspen. So that's kind of the pedigree of companies that I've had the opportunity to work with.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What were you doing before property, before 1995?
Well, I know I look it, but I'm not that old. So I was just out of basically college and university around 92, spent a little bit of time in advertising.
Oh, yeah.
So that was kind of what I thought I wanted to do, was be in advertising. And actually started this business in marketing. So I was a marketing coordinator, first job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you imagine when you started in 1995 that you'd be in this position? Like, were you like, I want to rise, I want to get to higher ranks, or were you just kind of like, I'm enjoying it? And
no, I think when you're at that stage, it's really about, you're drinking from the fire hose. There's so much to learn.
Yeah.
I think at that point, I probably looked as far as a general manager, because that's who I worked with, and thought that would be cool. And I did get there. And I think at least the way I've always done it is you do the job that you're tasked with.
Yes.
And if you do it well, good things happen.
Yes.
Right. And different opportunities open up.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. As a senior vice president of real estate management at Aspen Properties, how do you ensure that the company functions as a strategic business partner for its tenants rather than just a landlord?
What exactly the question you asked is how I want to approach and how I want Aspen and the property management and operations team to approach kind of their day to day. Is that this business for a long time was about, landlord, tenant, and commodity, at least in the office space. And I think my retail background gave me a little bit of an edge, because you're dealing with a lot of times small business people and people who are, your success is kind of codependent.
Yes.
And you really learn that service is the way to go, not,
Yes.
the landlord says this and the landlord says that,
Yeah.
which the landlord typically writes the lease. So there's quite a bit of power,
Yes.
but it's the wrong way to look at it. So
Amazing.
strategic business partner is exactly the right way,
Yes.
because the success is still
Yeah.
codependent.
Yes.
We want to facilitate commerce. We want to facilitate business. And if you look at it that way, in that you're a partner and not a landlord, terrible term, to be honest, right? So that's kind of how do we facilitate that? It's through, I think, if we tour the building here, you look at the amenities we've put in, we're trying to help the tenant attract the best talent, because
Yes.
that helps them win.
Yes.
That's our job.
Yes.
And then on the other side of it, we want to provide the best service we can
Yeah.
to make sure that we're doing, the tenant's comfortable and is able to do what they need to do. So
Brilliant.
that's our job.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to do a tour here, but tell me a little bit about the Ampersand building, especially because this is kind of your crown jewel. I'm putting words in your mouth. Correct me
Yeah.
if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Yeah. So 57,000 square feet of amenities. Is that correct?
At the Ampersand?
Here at
Because
the
we've got
Ampersand.
about probably 115 in our portfolio, and probably more than half is here,
Okay.
or about half.
Yeah.
And you got to be lucky to be good and good to be lucky. And this is a case in point where this building, or these buildings, it's actually a complex. We purchased off market because we saw an opportunity. And, this area that we're sitting in was a conference center. We've updated it. It was I'm not going to say Calgary's worst food court, but it was pretty close. Is now club quality fitness center, complete with a spin studio, all the cardio and weight equipment that you really need. Tenant lounge that's got a bartender that's on staff, and it's exclusive to tenant use. So, we transformed functionally obsolete space into like really, really good tenant amenities.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. And in my podcast with Scott, the executive chair of Aspen, he talked about being anti-corporate and really, really competing with everyone's homes.
That's it. Yeah.
And you want to create an environment where people come here because they want to spend their time here, not just to work.
Yeah, we have, and I've mentioned the story to others before, but we bought this building just prior to COVID. So the renovations were complete during COVID. And of course we opened while COVID was still a thing. But we did have instances where people were working from home, but coming downtown to work out, to enjoy the amenities, and then go back home to work. And
That's
that
amazing.
for us was like, we nailed it.
Yeah.
Because if that's what we need to do is we're competing with people's home offices and commutes really the rub for everybody. But if you make it compelling enough, and you'll see when you tour, we think we've made a compelling case here, and it's it's very well used.
Yeah, no question. You guys have set the standards very high for what an office building should feel and look like. That's for sure. Amazing. What strategies do you employ to maintain continuous operational efficiencies? As a real estate manager throughout Aspen's real estate portfolio, while also prioritizing an unparalleled experience for tenants.
So today, the sustainability is a big buzzword, and not just a buzzword. It's important, but it is on a lot of people's minds. And commercial, office buildings have a part to play in that. There's some generation of GHGs. It's really a speck in the grand scheme of the world.
Yes.
There's lots of things that create a lot of GHGs. However, we've got a spot to play in that. So there's lots of different technologies chasing that. You've got to break some eggs. You've got to test some stuff. It's not always easy on the team because you have to rely on your team to go out and, test different technologies that are out there. And we've done that, and we've had some really good successes, and we've had some that haven't kind of cut the mustard. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
So we've got that side of things on the operations side.
Yes.
We've got our own tenant engagement app that we've developed internally, and then we've now spun it out into a company that provides it to other companies.
Yes.
So we try to control kind of both the back end and the front end of the tenant experience. And
amazing. And we're going to get into that app because
Right.
very, very interesting what you guys have done with that. So we'll get into that for sure. How do you ensure Aspen Properties management practices align with the company's broader goals and values? What principles guide your decision-making process in this regard?
So one of the benefits or the advantages that we have as a company is that we're local.
Yeah.
So, we're local to the Alberta market. We're local to Calgary and Edmonton.
Yes.
I lived in Edmonton for many years. I've now moved down to Calgary, but travel up there. Our team travels up there. We've got a team on site in Edmonton.
Yeah.
The owners are here. They're in the building. There's no dilution of the objective or the goal or the direction that you might see in a bigger company, right? There's no telephone game that happens between, I want this to happen. And as it rolls down the chain, it gets kind of tweaked and changed. And pretty soon no one understands why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
So we don't have that problem. Scott will walk around and chat with the property administrator for the Ampersand and it's a direct communication. So we're pretty flat as an organization goes. I mean, there's hierarchy, but we're local. That helps a ton.
Yeah.
So
boutique is the word that comes to my mind.
Well, that's on our website, right? I mean, it's a boutique real estate company, but that's always been on that on our website. And I think it's changing a bit to, certainly we're still boutique, but kind of this service technology driven, entrepreneurial is huge.
Yes. And principle, I've gotten to know you over the years, and, I've recently gotten to know Scott, and there is a very consistent theme of integrity and strong principles. And I don't see those wavering ever. And I think that starts with Scott and the team that he's built, and he's brought on people that are like-minded in that way.
Yeah, there are 3 partners. So there's Scott Hutchison, Greg Guado, Rob Blackwell, and we have leadership team meetings. So I'm in that room with them, and of course, there are lots of issues that we come up against, and like any other company. But I can tell you that is actually that's the walk gets walked there. That's the truth.
I believe it. I would
love. I've learned a lot.
I bet
about how to, manage myself basically.
Yeah, incredible. These guys. Great people to work with, and great mentors. And I would love to be a fly on the wall for those meetings.
I mean, and the great thing about I think you're talking to Scott. You have had him on the podcast, and you're keeping that line of communication open.
Yeah.
And I think I sent you a note, say basically congratulations, because that's a great connection to have. And you won't find too many people that offer the suite of acumen in our world that he does.
Yeah, he's a special man. You can see it very quickly. Yeah, very good. Could you elaborate on how before I even ask this question, I want to say something. Since I've known you, you are probably one of the most innovative, forward-thinking people in this industry that I've ever met. And so this question I was excited to ask because you're always asking me, what if you ever find any technology, send it my way, and you're always looking, and for how can you implement technology into your properties. So can you elaborate a little bit on how you utilize technology to enhance Aspen Properties Management's operation platform? What specific technological advancements have you found most impactful in your role?
Sure. Yeah, and thanks for the compliment. And there's a reason I think that I asked, because I think you're interested in that getting at that goal of being better than yesterday. And not everyone is, right? And we're doing really interesting things here. We've got some advantage of being a first mover in the amenity space, but that won't last.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you've always got to be interested in what's next,
Yes.
what's happening tomorrow, what's happening down the road, what's happening with your competitor, what's happening with people in the industry like yourself.
Yeah.
So really we're testing things, and you have to do that. So you take a property and you take a technology, or you take a way of doing something, and you give it a go. And we, like I said, we've had some kind of not massive, but we've had some really bad experiences with some of them.
Yeah.
They don't all work out.
Yeah.
But you will not know that until
Yeah.
you give it a test, right?
Yeah.
And we've had some other ones. So right now, other than our app,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
really helping us to, getting that edge for tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
and our customers
Yeah.
as Carrot, which is the company,
Yes.
the customers of Carrot,
Yes.
CARET, that those customers will also get that edge.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of technology chasing our industry, because our industry is kind of, it's old and it's set in its ways a lot of times. But we're finding the app is great. A lot of data mining, a lot of IoT. I mean, there's some companies out there doing the same thing. IoT is a fantastic and inexpensive way to gain data points on your building.
IoT. What's that?
Internet of Things. So
Oh, yeah,
these are
sure.
these sensors that are really dollars a sensor,
Yes.
and they communicate typically via LoRaWAN, which is very long range,
Yeah.
hence the name LoRa, long
Yeah.
range wide area network. But it can't handle a lot of data.
Mm.
So it's just data points. Open, closed, yes, no, temperature's 23 or 18, humidity is this. So, but I mean, those are all interesting things for us. So we're really building out, that technology throughout our buildings. And to be honest, I don't know what we'll do with the data
Yeah.
yet,
Right.
but we're gathering it.
Yeah.
And, we'll consolidate it. And it
Yeah.
reminds me a lot of, you remember back in the day, there was Napster and there was
Yes.
MP3s, and
Yes.
then it was like, everybody's doing this crazy stuff. There's all these,
Yeah.
and eventually it just coalesced into
Yeah.
a couple of different providers and
Exactly.
standards and so on. It's kind of where we are with a lot of these building technologies. Is there's stuff chasing everything from air filtration to, HVAC automation to IoT, access control, cleaning. Everybody's trying to use AI to do all these things. And there's a lot of, nice brochures out there.
Yeah.
but
No kidding. No kidding.
There's not a lot of actual proof.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
we're gathering that.
The good thing about you, you kind of remind me of Jeff Bezos, who's just not afraid to fail, right? Try things, test it, spend some time. You've said to me before, you owe it. That's your job you owe it to your industry to put in the time to investigate and to dig in and test out different products and allow them to fail.
Yeah, and in fact, and I was talking to Rob, who's our COO. I was saying we should have a conference right here in our conference center for property management professionals. We should share and invite in other experts. Like, we're not an expert. I guess we're good at what we do, but invite in experts and share, experiences.
It's amazing.
Because the tide will lift all boats, and we need that, especially now where we're there's work from home still a thing. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was thinking we should share that.
That's amazing. Make sure you let me know in that.
For sure.
I'd love to stop by and listen in.
Yeah, you can set up and interview people.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Amazing. Talking about Carrot, super cool software. We've had a chance to use it, and it is brilliant. You're the co-founder.
One of
one of the co-founders, and you're the chief product officer as
Correct.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Share the vision behind Carrot. What kind of conceptualize the idea? How does it function? Go into it. Yeah.
So probably 5 years ago, we're doing this other stuff with the Edison and our amenities and thinking about this here at the Ampersand and the rest of our portfolio. And how do we use technology to connect with our tenants to, facilitate the use of these things and also understand their needs. And there were a few platforms out there at the time. Most of them were pretty old and pretty standard stuff.
Okay.
So we thought we'll make our own.
Yeah.
Because how hard can it be?
Yeah.
And it was very hard. We learned that, and we spent a lot of time and money.
Yeah.
And really we only got to a place where we kind of crystallized the idea. We didn't actually get a workable solution. So we had to, we didn't realize we were a startup, but we were a startup. So we had to change gears a little bit and refocus and understand. And we got that MBA of app development that we really had to learn trial by fire.
Yeah.
And retooled some things and got the product working. And that was probably 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
Or so.
Yeah.
And, since then it's been improved and, kind of minor improvements all the way along, because its worst day was yesterday, because every day it gets better. We have a major update coming this summer, but we just, we knew what we needed. No one was providing it. Now, fast forward 5 years, there are other companies that provide something similar. We don't think they do it like we do, because most of them, if not all of them, are software companies looking for real estate companies to help them.
Right.
And we're a real estate company looking for software.
Yes.
And we're coming at it from a different angle.
Oh, that's huge. I mean, you understand your needs better than anyone else. So the value is massive there.
And we've learned.
Yeah.
Aspen's probably 10% of the total universe of Carrot clients. We've learned from other clients that everything that we think is important isn't necessarily what they do. There's a good 80% that works.
Yeah.
But there's a 20% that, this is how we do it. And so we've had to kind of modify, tweak, customize. It's taken a lot of time and effort. And
amazing. Tell me a little bit about the functionality. Like what are some of the most used, aspects of Carrot?
Well, I mean, the purpose of Carrot really is a tenant engagement tool. So that's a primary purpose. The benefit of Carrot is that you create new opportunities to connect with your tenant, and you learn about how the tenants use the building, and you learn about how your team is responding to tenant needs. And that provides coaching moments and, corrections in processes and so on. So, we use it for mobile door access, for our amenities. We use it for bookings. We use it for service requests. We use it for preventative maintenance. And we'll be rolling in these other IoT, data points into this so that we can, it's really, again, there is a grand vision. It's not there yet. It's coming together. When it comes together, if it comes together the way we want, it should really, if you're a real estate person, you should, we'll show it to you and you'll be like, holy cow, I need that. That's awesome. Kind of the point.
And you have over 40 million square feet under Carrot's portfolio right now. And so obviously people are taking a liking to it. And you said 3.5 years or so. That's been
I mean, the sales cycle is long. Because you're talking to people about their tenants, and we get that. And there's some, who owns the data, which we're very conscious of as well. So we make sure that people know they own their data. But it's really, when it's a great tool, but you've got to get over the hump of, this will be okay for you to show to your tenants and to, because this is actually going to add value to their day and make your team better and all those things. But, we've had some comments from some potential customers like, I've got a notebook and a piece of paper and a pen, and I don't need your app. That's,
it's not going to last.
It's not going to, not sustainable. You can do it. But
it's not efficient.
I've always said that this business can be done by a lot of different people. But not a lot of people can do it well. And, you've got to there's a lot of property management companies out there. There's a lot of real estate owners out there.
Yes.
But I don't think everybody's doing it well. I think there's lots of okays.
I would agree. And I know I would definitely say that Aspen does it incredibly well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put us on the pedestal. We were forced into being innovative because the price of oil collapsed, and we had to figure out, we had empty buildings and figure something out. Yeah. And then COVID. So, crisis creates that opportunity. But there are lots of companies that I admire. I look at and what they're doing, and wow, I wish I thought of that. I wish I could do that. So there's a lot of good ones out there, but like anything else, there's a lot of mediocrity too. And that also creates opportunity.
Totally. Just a little bit more on Carrot.
Sure.
I'm curious, how does Carrot measure ROI on this platform? What metrics and key performance indicators are tracked to assess its impact on overall business outcomes?
Yeah, that would depend on the client. So, we're using it as kind of a data analytics, tenant communication, really a sticky. We want to facilitate the use of amenities. We want to make sure that the tenant can contact us however they prefer. And, we think that makes that tenant a little stickier than another one, so that, if they contemplate leaving to go to another building, they might look at it and go, I really enjoy this, and the experience has been great, and we've got no problems with our landlord.
Yeah, exactly. The efficiencies are just incredible. Like, there's so much value in that, because if a tenant sees a dirty washroom, they send a message, and not only is that immediately sent to the janitorial company, but it's timed, and so the response time is in there, and so the janitorial company has incentive to respond quickly,
right,
and accurately, and make sure that it's fixed, because if it's not fixed, another message will likely come in. And so there's a lot of accountability, and it's just a very smooth system. I was super impressed with it.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is the back end and the how companies manage their teams, which is super important.
Yeah.
But Carrot's function really is on the front end to create those channels and make it as easy as possible. I don't need to fumble with a key card, and I don't need to, like, we work with other companies as well, like ParkChamp. We work for our parking, and they've got something called automatic license plate recognition. We like that because I don't want to come in to the parkade when it's cold, roll down my window, or have to open my door, and no, your license plate is recognized and away you go.
Amazing.
So we're thinking about those things, right? It's just, and those are available. Other companies do it too. It's just, constantly striving for that frictionless experience by your customer.
Exactly.
Right? That's the key.
Bang on. And on that note, my next question was, what trends do you foresee? What do you see in the future? Do you see anything that's coming that's not maybe here yet, or where's everything going in property management?
It kind of depends where you are, I think, because the markets that are challenged, you've got to be good to manage those buildings in those markets, because otherwise you get buried. If the vacancy rate is 3%, then sometimes the focus from some companies gets changed to it's okay, because it's like shooting fish in a barrel at this point. We're not going to have a problem leasing our space. So I think we've had that advantage of being in these markets. These markets that have been tough. It's made us better, but it also becomes part of the DNA, right? So Vancouver to some degree, not so much. Toronto a little bit now is starting to see, their vacancies creeping up, and work from home is a bit stickier in some of those markets. So they're having to get creative, and that crisis again creates that opportunity. So I think those trends get created in pockets. Tech is certainly a trend that's out there and won't go away. And if you're not doing it, you should. Because it's drives efficiency. It probably lowers op costs. You learn about your tenants and how they're using the building.
That's right.
And that's not going away.
It's a very optimistic perspective. When a bad market, a lot of people would just kind of hang their heads, but you're saying no, that's an opportunity to push for the customer, and at the end of the day, the end user wins. because they're getting the property managers are pressing their boundaries, pushing forward to better the experience for the end user. So it's really an enhancement of
as you're saying that, I'm thinking empty buildings need people to watch the operations and to manage them, but who wants to do that?
Right.
That's
Yes.
not why anybody that I know is in our business.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
there because they enjoy that service aspect, and not everybody.
Yeah.
Some people are quite
Yeah.
comfortable just to kind of punch in, punch out.
Yes.
But I think service is going to be a huge trend going forward. It is for us. And the tech, there's AI is everything, everywhere, all the time. And, we've tried some of those solutions and not had a good experience. And we've tried others and they've been quite good. Usually the magic happens when it's a human AI kind of collaboration. And we found those to be probably the best. You can't just leave it to a machine because it doesn't work.
Yeah. That's good. That's good to know. So it's not replacing all of us.
No, I mean, it should. If it's we've got a product we're working on, we'll release soon, and we think it will help the property management team reclaim time, not displace people.
Right. Yes.
So that you can stop doing these kind of redundant tasks.
Yeah.
They're important, but man, are they time sucking.
Yeah.
Let's solve that with tech so that you can go and do something more important.
Yeah, I love it.
And connect with the tenant and make sure that, things that require people are being taken care of.
Yeah, as you're talking, and I think Scott alluded to this too, it's going to allow you to get more into the world of hospitality.
Yeah. You can, with money, you could recreate everything that's here. No problem. Anyone can. There's lots of big players in commercial real estate, but not everybody's going to be able to nail the service aspect of things. And that's kind of that's where, at least on the office space world, that's where we're headed. Retail's, I think, known that for a while. Certainly hotel, the hotel business, they've got it nailed. But that's kind of where we're moving. We need to think more like that and treat our tenants like guests and like customers and not like landlord tenant.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
As a leader in property management, what advice would you give? Let's say Morley in 1995, so what would you give? What advice would you give? Maybe you don't have to make it just Morley, but there might be some
I'm
other
not sure
things.
there's any saving that guy. He's got to go through it.
But what advice would you give to property managers aspiring to reach the levels of success that you have?
Well, the advantage of having time in the industry and being in a leadership role is that you actually get to do that.
Yeah.
So I've had those occurrences where I've been able to, someone's had an issue. I remember promoting somebody into a new position and they were, to their credit, they said, I don't know if I can do this. And I said to this person, you have to remember, we promoted who you are into the role. We're not looking for someone different. We see who you are growing into this role. We're not looking for you to be someone you're not. And it comes. And, I've said this before too, but I appreciate the ability to say it on a platform. But one of the greatest compliments I had was someone came into my office and said, do you ever feel like some days you don't know what you're doing? And I thought the fact that this person felt safe enough to say that, and then I could say yes, that's super helpful to people. Like it's not a business that you can just do. You've got to learn it.
Yes.
And
exactly.
Got to have some collaboration, mentorship, all that kind of stuff.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's words of wisdom right there for sure. I can use those words because I got imposter syndrome just sitting here right now.
No, we all can and we all do. And Scott will say the same thing. I've heard him say it. That's not unusual. Like, we got to give each other more grace than we do, especially ourselves as well, right? And that's, I find that the root to a lot of issues with people is that they're thinking either I'm failing or my expectations are messed up, and like, let's just talk to each other and figure it out. Right?
exactly. You're a guy that I think a lot of people would want to work for. That's for sure.
Yeah,
So,
work with, yes.
work with. Oh,
Yeah.
see, you're just touche.
Yeah. I actually, one of the things that I really don't like is when people talk about superiors.
Yeah.
Like, well, I got to go talk to my superior. What? Like, that's not how this works. Mentor, yes. But, there are people who are new into this business have a lot to offer, and their perspective is unique. I'm not, as you can tell, Gen Z or any, so that perspective is unique.
Yes.
I need to listen to that.
Yeah.
So it's, there's lots to offer.
That's beautiful
from the team. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I always say, for our team, like, we work for our custodians, not the other way around.
Right.
Like we're here to provide them all the tools and the success to be successful.
Yeah.
And we're here to help them achieve their dreams, not the other way around.
And if you do, the business that, the how they do what they do is going to change your business.
It's a win-win.
Right.
It's a win-win. Yeah. And clearly
and I know you know that, which is part of the reason I enjoy talking to you, because I know there's that like-mindedness in that.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Amazing. You're a board member of BOMA Edmonton.
Yeah.
Awesome. Even though you're in Calgary still.
Yep.
So
I said to them when I moved down, I said, I'll basically give up my seat.
Yeah.
And they said, no, it's fine. No problem.
Awesome.
And I travel up often as I can. And
great.
I'm up next week for a couple meetings, but
great. Very cool.
It's nice to be plugged in. We have interest in that community, right?
Yes. Yeah. Tell me a little bit. You're also a member of the building committee of the Arts Commons in Calgary too. Yeah, so very active in the community. How do you contribute to the development and improvement of the commercial real estate landscape in these communities?
Oh, I think our time is a commodity. Our time is valuable. I've got kids. You've got kids. Like, we know this, but there's something about, spending time out there and doing what you can to help. I think there's a little bit of responsibility that everybody has. And if I can help BOMA Edmonton, I'm 100% there.
It's amazing.
I mean, there's a bit of self-serving. We have assets in downtown Edmonton.
Yes.
But I also just appreciate the mentorship of the group, and you learn a lot of stuff too, right?
For sure. We're fairly new to BOMA and getting more and more active, and there's so much value there. And the community is just, the networking opportunity is just is so valuable. Are you going to be at the Buckaroo Bash this summer?
I don't know.
I hope so.
I think I saw that email.
Okay, yeah, we're the platinum sponsor.
That's right.
So I want to see it out there.
That's why I saw it on LinkedIn. Yes, I did.
Awesome, very good. When gauging the financial viability of commercial property, what are the foremost expenses that greatly influence its performance and long-term success?
As far as operating costs go, utilities are typically number one, and cleaning and security are number 2 and 3. So there's lots of technology chasing that number one, because it's important today, sustainability, ESG, all that stuff, and also just from an op cost. So we look at it from the perspective of pragmatism. So what can we do that's actually beneficial to the tenants?
Yes.
You can go out and buy green credits. That doesn't help anybody.
Right.
I guess maybe it helps the companies selling those RECs, but we'd rather be actually efficient in our operation.
Yeah.
And we have to think about that. So I can't take a boiler that's got 20 years left in its useful life, and maybe it's gas fired instead of electric. And, there's some efficiencies with electric. I can't, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Unless someone's going to give me a boiler, and they're not. So, it's
so finding tech that is solving it, but also being conscious of the environment or the impact, but doing it realistically. That's not going to sacrifice quality or.
There are always efficiencies.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're constantly looking for those supply chain issues.
Yeah.
Like this, I know this.
Yeah.
There are constantly things you can do, and kind of. There's some forces that are really tough to overcome.
Yeah.
But when the markets decided that this problem costs this much to solve, and you think, boy, that sounds really expensive, and I think about and I'm not an Elon Musk fanboy at all, but I think about some of the efficiencies that where he has looked at some problems and said, why? Why is it done that way? Why would a bucket of rivets cost $6,000 when I can get them at the store for 60?
Yeah.
So it's kind of looking for those efficiencies, yourself from discussions that we've had where, I want a partner in a contractor who has an aligned interest. Yes. And it's hard to come by. Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. Thanks for that. Now for some fun questions.
Sure.
If you can manage any famous property in the world, or any property, it doesn't even have to be famous.
Yeah.
What property would that be and why?
Yeah. Not trying to be cheeky here, but I would not do that, because what I'd rather do. Yeah. Because I don't know. I mean, that's not how my brain works. I'd rather go to some property and go, how do you do this? How are you guys doing this? How can you be, so efficient in this or that, or why do you have so many people here? Is there, that's kind of how I would think about it is, what makes that tick and what can I take from that? Yeah. Because I don't see myself doing anything other than what I'm doing. Right. But I just want to do it better.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any properties that kind of, you're very interested in learning how they operate, or anything that come to mind?
Oh, there'd be a ton, but I think a lot of what you see around here, the inspiration back in 2015 would have been Silicon Valley, going down there going, these are not office building owners. These are tech companies, but they're really treating their customers, their employees, differently than the rest of the world. And then, you look at WeWork, which was an amazing company for a while and then completely, broke down. But, what did they do and why did that resonate with people at that time? And, so I think I would look for those cases. It doesn't have to be big. We're not big. We're tiny in the universe of commercial real estate, but I would, if I wasn't here, I'd look here and say, how are you guys doing it? You've got some success. Why is that? Yeah. What makes this work?
Yeah. No, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe people do come to this building in particular, the Ampersand, and study it and try to understand it.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, we've seen people, we don't always get the call, but we've seen people walking around with, their notepads out,
there's
cameras and so on,
here.
and which is fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing to hide. It's just, there's a bit of weaving together of a bunch of different ways of doing things that make it work at the end of the day. But,
yes, exactly. Amazing. Very cool. Yeah, I think about I remember seeing on TV that in Silicon Valley, there's literally people skateboarding through the hallways and like playing video games on their break, and
like we became
cushions and
dog friendly.
Yeah, right.
And I think Scott had talked about that. But as a property manager, and we're going to be dog friendly. What? There's going to be they're going to bite somebody. Yeah. There's going to be dogs fighting. There's going to be barking. Yeah. There's going to be, stuff you got to clean up. Yeah. This is going to be a nightmare. That's the kind of that way of thinking that's like, how do I mitigate all the problems that are going to come from this? The reality is none of those have really happened. Like, people are pretty respectful. The dogs are well kind of taken care of, so it's like having some trust in your customer to do the right thing. And so I think people appreciate that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And then talk about taking a risk on bringing dogs in. The good thing is you can try it. Yeah. If it doesn't work, you can.
Yep, that's fair. And had we had a whole bunch of problems, we probably would have said, not going to work. Yeah, but we haven't. Working. And you see dogs in here, and it's kind of cool. And
brilliant.
We had a story. One of the tenants was saying he wasn't having a good day, whatever. And one of his staff said, hey, there's someone here to see you. And he's like, I don't have time for this. And it was someone's dog. And it just completely changed his mood, So you do it at home. Yeah. We got to kind of be thinking about what we can do here.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That's so cool. My last question, before we do the grand tour, of course, if you could recommend any book to a property manager, what book would that be and why?
So one that I just finished, I'll say reading, but I listened to it, is Unreasonable Hospitality.
Okay.
And I'm totally blanking on the author's name,
That's okay.
but he runs the front end of a restaurant called 11 Madison Park in New York. And it's not about restaurant operations. It's about how you think about what you do. It's not a new idea. Way back, there was an old video. It was called the Fish Video, and it was about these guys in Pike Place Market.
Yes.
Do you know the video?
I know it.
Yeah, and I remember seeing that. I'm like, of course, if you're going to do something, you have choices to make. Do it with a smile. Do it to try to make someone's day better, or do it and feel pissed off that you got to be at work. So, I mean, this Unreasonable Hospitality is a great book.
Yeah.
I've recommended it to a few other people,
Okay.
and a couple of people said, like they had tears and they couldn't put it down. And I didn't have tears, but it is, it's the right book for people who want to take their business to the next level. And, you can't always do that with design and, building something. It's got to be done through how you treat people.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I've read a book, and I can't remember the author's name either, but it was called Culture Code.
Okay.
And
I've heard that.
it alluded to your book.
Oh, okay.
Quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah. So now I have to read it.
Yeah,
I've heard it
great
there, and
book.
I've heard it from you
It's a
now.
great book.
So that's definitely next on my list. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. Pike Place, really interesting.
Yes.
We talk a lot about that within our business because they're world renowned.
Yes.
For a small little fish shop, or
Yep.
I've never been there, but they're throwing fish and
Yep.
they're talking and having fun, but getting things done at the same time
Yep.
and selling a lot of fish. From our perspective, our commercial cleaning company, we think about that as how do we get world renowned? We might not be the biggest,
Right.
cleaning company or fish market
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the world, but people will look to us for the model everywhere around the world. That's our vision.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I love that you bring that up because
Yeah.
we talk about that a lot.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, it was like, I was younger at that point in time. And I remember watching this. And it was actually the company, I think it was Cambridge Shopping Centers, that said, hey, everyone should watch this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I watched it and I thought, that's so like, it makes so much sense. You're here, you're doing it. So do it with a smile.
Yeah.
Do it well. Do
Yeah,
it
exactly.
to make somebody happy. And,
Yeah, exactly.
do
it with passion.
why not?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we'll see that with Little E.
I think
out
so.
there.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a great. That's very similar to the Pike Place Market. I think is a destination. Is people go to get joy, and you guys
Yeah.
are doing it.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, Little E's doing it, and Paul Constance and that group, and we were a small part of kind of bringing them here. But you will not have a better cup of coffee.
yeah,
Doesn't matter.
yeah. Well, let's go get one.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay,
Let's do it.
sounds good.
Let's do it.
Perfect. Thanks, Morley.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Yeah.